Hello and welcome back to my craft room. Well, I have moved on. I've got on really well with my Scrappy String Quilt, and I have now got, when I saw you last time I'd done about 24 of these little hand stitched squares. I've now got 48 and I'm ready to put them onto my backing and move on to the next stage. So that's what I'm going to do in a minute, but just first I just wanted to briefly mention something. So one of my viewers got in touch with me recently, private messaged me to say that she'd been having some allergy symptoms and they couldn't identify what was causing it. One of the possibilities, because it's something that was new to her, was the Bazaar scrap packs. So she was wondering, about whether they would be okay to be washed. So it got me thinking, because I've had a little bit of an itchy face recently, and it's probably something, as who knows, there's so many things it could be. But of course I use these fabrics all of the time. It's only the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks maybe I've noticed it, but and I've been having these for years and never had a problem. So it might be nothing, but when you think about it, they are reclaimed fabrics that have had a previous life. If you went to the charity shop and bought some clothes, you'd wash them before you'd take them home and wash them before you wore them, wouldn't you? So I suppose in the same way, it probably makes sense to wash these. I've just never bothered before and never had a problem, but I thought, well, what I'm going to do is this probably isn't all of the Bazaar fabrics I've got, but I've got a pile here of ones that I scooped up, and I just threw them in the Delicates wash in my washing machine. So they got washed and rinsed and spun, and they were fine. What I did was, let me show you the no, I can show you here actually. The fabrics come in these recycled sari bags, so I put especially the smaller pieces and the silk pieces inside this bag, so it wouldn't all kind of go all over the place in the washing machine or get stuck in the door or anything, because some of the pieces are quite small, aren't they? And the larger pieces I just threw in. I intended to separate out the ones like the dark, I'll spot them as I go through and point them out, and there were a couple of kind of darker blue ones and things that I thought, the colour might come out and ruin everything, and I meant to take them out but I didn't. In the end I just threw the whole lot in and it's fine. So I thought I'm just going to quickly show you how they look. I just hung them up. It wasn't a drying day for me, so I hung them up over my I've got these hanger things that go on the radiators, and I've got like a clothes area thing. I just draped them all over. They were draped all over my chairs in the conservatory. It was very pretty. It was like Aladdin's cave in there. And the next morning everything was dry and I ironed them. I used a hot iron on the cotton pieces, and I used the silk setting on my iron on the silk pieces, and it also had steam, and none of it came to any harm. I'm going to quickly show you them just so you can see. So if this is something that that you're bothered about and you'd feel better for having washed the fabrics, it's not going to do them any harm. Having said that, I've been using them for years and I've never bothered, so it's up to you. I just wanted to let you know that if it's a concern for you, it's not a problem to wash them. So this went through. So there's the sari bag. I'm going to put that down on there. So yeah, there were lots of cotton pieces like this, lots of silk pieces. They've all got the only ones that were at all affected. I don't know if I can find them now. Here we are. There, I had a couple of pieces like this. Now these in the wash, I don't think it was like this before. I think that probably happened in the wash. And I've got some pieces like this. I didn't do these because I wasn't sure how the washing was gonna affect things. I might, now I know that these have been all right, I might gently hand wash these kind of pieces. And this one, which I'm very precious about, I just think it's so beautiful with all that hand stitching. This one that I love is another one that I think perhaps because of all the different kinds of fabrics, I'm worried that if one shrinks differently, it probably won't shrink because they're previously used fabrics that have probably already shrunk. I'm just a bit precious about these ones like this, so I'll either not bother at all or I will gently hand wash them. So you can see that all of the silk pieces are absolutely fine. No problem at all. It hasn't affected the colour or the texture or anything. And yeah, this one I thought might go a bit funny because of all the stitching on it, but it's absolutely fine. And then these are all the cottons, and you can see some of these deeper colours. These are the ones I was a bit worried that dye might run or something, but they seem to have nothing bad seems to have happened to anything. This was one that I thought might have, you know, sometimes you get that kind of indigo dye coming out of these sort of pieces, don't you? But if it did come out, it didn't seem to leach into, you know, and affect any of the other fabrics. So yeah, so that's it makes me realise how much of this fabric I've got. I love it all though. It was quite nice going through and ironing it all. I re-familiarised myself to all of these lovely pieces. There we go. Yeah, so nothing has come to any harm at all. Right, let's put all that, scoop that all up. So yeah, just in case you were wondering, yes, you can wash them, and yes, they'll be fine. And you know, if you are sensitive to dust or, you know, dyes or anything, you know, it's probably a good idea. So let's have a look at my Scrappy String Quilt. I'm so excited about this. I love how it's looking. Give myself as much space as I can. This is the fabric. This was one of my free from Contrado. I know it's a couple of people on the Facebook group have shared that, or in the Discord have shared that they're what they got in their Contrado packs. So Contrado is a company in the UK that print your own design onto fabrics for you, and they have this thing where they will give you they have all these ends of rolls and things, I suppose, that can't be used in their normal process, and they give you a 2 kilogram bundle of the fabric. All you have to pay is the delivery cost, which at the moment is £5.49 in the UK, and it comes the next day. I've bought 2 packs, and each time it's come the very next day. I've been really surprised. And you get a 2 kilogram bundle of fabric. Is quite a lot, and they're nice big folded clean pieces of fabric, mostly white and kind of neutral colours, because they're going to print, they're for printing on. But I mean, this one is a pale blue. Oops, you get the occasional you get the occasional sort of coloured bit, or bit with a bit of print on or something, but usually they're plain. And I've had everything from silk to cotton to linen to synthetics to like a waterproof fabric. I've had a little bit of neoprene, all sorts. It could be all sorts, but for £5.49, you know, even some of them, even if I just use them as a dust cover, you know, or, you know, linings and things like that. So that's what I'm using here. I'll put a link to Contrado below, and I'll put a link to Bazaar as well. Their fabric packs I just love this. They call them scrap packs. I call them treasure bags. They are so beautiful. They're full of fabrics, trims, and little doodads that have been reclaimed. I love Bazaar and the way they work and what they do, and they have very kindly said that if you put Arty Farty Annie Treat, I'll put it up here in the note to seller at the end when you're checking out. They will put a little extra something or other in for you, and we've had some lovely little treats in our packages. So okay, let's get back to the desk and move on. So it's been lovely to see some other people joining in with this project. You by no means have to go and get a Bazaar scrap pack to do it. You can use whatever tiny scraps you've got, and I went into very few larger pieces of fabric. When I say larger, I did have a couple of pieces like that I tore strips off, but mostly I used the very tiny scraps that we like to hoard. Little bits of ribbon and trims and things as well. Yeah, it's just a great way to use up all those things that you can't throw away. I've been using this little 2.5 inch or roughly 6 centimetre square as my guide. I've just torn strips off of this cotton to make these little squares. Some of them aren't very square, it really won't matter. And then I've used tiny strips, diagonal strips, to cover the squares, and I've hand stitched them all on. Not particularly well. I've been using all these different colours of sulky 12 weight thread. I will link to previous videos in this series. So you can easily catch up I think some people I've loved seeing what other people are the squares that other people are making. I'll leave my link tree below so that you can find your way to our Discord community and the Arty Farty Annie Facebook group, so you can show us pictures if you decide to join in with this. Some people are just going to do a few and make something small. You could make something as small as a needle case. You could do a cushion. You could do an art journal cover. Whatever you like. But I'm planning to make a quilt that then folds up into a book. I saw this idea. Lynie of I Am Lynie. I will link to her below as well in the description box. She did this idea where she did like a stitch sampler and backed it with a nice piece of fabric. The whole thing folded up, and then she put a cover on it. And I liked that idea, so I'm kind of pinching that idea, but kind of putting a spin on it. I've got a piece of cotton that I tie-dyed back last summer that I'm going to use as my backing, although I do think now I might end up doing a stitch sampler on it as well, because I might as well, in which case that will become the inside and this will be the outside, but that's a later stage. Let's take this one step at a time. So if you've finished making your squares, this is the next step. If you've seen string quilting before, you'll know the way they put them together. I've never done a proper string quilt, a proper, machine. It's normally done with, people normally machine it. The idea is that you put them together now to create a pattern. Now, I like it when you put them together like this, so you create diamonds and crosses. Last time I got it wrong, I think there were people shouting at the screen because I kept putting them down wrong. So yeah, I like creating diamonds like this. Diamonds and crosses. But I could equally well, let's just put one more to make that a full. I'm confusing myself again. Yeah, I think they're all looking right. So it's all diamonds and crosses. But I could put them all in the same direction. That looks quite nice as well. I like the crosses and diamonds. Or I could alternate them, get this kind of chevron effect. I quite like that. Let's do another line now. And then I will probably spend quite a long time moving them around till I'm happy. I prefer, when I do my diamonds, I don't want the diamond to be the same. I want each quarter of the diamond to be a different colour. That's just me. No reason really. So yeah, that gives me a kind of a chevron effect, which is also quite nice. If you wanted to just do a few, if you're a slower stitcher or you haven't got much time or whatever, you just want to have a little go, you could just do 6 like that. Stitch them onto the backing, and you can imagine folded in half. That's going to be quite a nice little size for the cover of a needle case. So I've got 48 squares here. The idea was to make it 6 by 8. And I'm going to now arrange them onto this fabric as a backing. It's not really going to show. And then stitch them all on, and then go in and add more decorative stitching. Some of that stitching will probably go across more than one square. It might not all be in lines either. I might do some little curlicues. I might stitch some buttons in the middle. I might add some beads and things, because we get all kinds of doodads with the Bazaar packs that I've got, stashed away that might as well be used up. Or I actually think it looks quite nice with just this stitching, I think probably if you wanted to be really tidy, you could have I think I've mentioned it in the previous videos. You could have. I've just left raw edges. I like the frayed edges. You could have done it so that you ended up with all the edges turned under, and And at this point now you could stitch them together right side to right side like that in strips, and then stitch the strips together so you've got no kind of raw edges and things. It depends on what look you like. I'm going to just stitch them onto this backing like this, as close as they'll go, trying not to leave any gaps. There's bits where I might trim a bit there. You can see where that's a bit of a funny shape. I'll trim that. Butt them up next to each other so there's no gaps in between, and stitch them onto this. And then I want to run some decorative stitching in between. So like if you were on a machine, you'd be stitching in the ditch. I'm just gonna perhaps do blanket stitch or feather stitch or something down these middle ones, or chain stitch would look nice. I might just do all sorts. So what I'm going to do now is just have a play around with my arrangement, and then I'll come back and show you. Right, I've finished dithering about. In the end, I just thought, just stop, pin them down and be done with. So what I've done is I've buttered them all up next to each other. I trimmed off any obviously kind of crooked parts. There are some bits where, let's find an example. Like there, I've ended up slightly overlapping at the centre, you know, where the four meet, there as well. I'm not going to worry about that. If there are bits like that that really stick out to me, that's where I'll be putting my buttons and things. If there are gaps like here, I think I'm going to end up with a gap just there between them. And I can't cut this one off straight because then I'll end up with a gap all the way along. But, you know, this one will just be too small if I do that. But that's okay because I can fill that in with my decorative stitching. Let's have a look and see what this has ended up measuring. So these were, I ended up using, I usually work in centimetres these days, but I ended up using a 2.5 centimetre square because for some reason I had this 2.5 inch square. I happened to have it on my desk. I think it must have been packaging or something. So I thought, well, I might as well use it. So let's see, I've got 6 this way by 8 that way. So depending on what you've ended up doing. So I've got about 39 centimetres I've ended up with that way. About 50 centimetres that way. So it's about, yeah, it's roughly 40 by 50 centimetres, roughly 15 by 20 inches, which is, I think that's what, is that actually what no, I thought I wrote it down somewhere. I think it's about what I predicted. So now I'm just going to tear off my backing fabric. I'm going to leave a sort of generous overlap because I'll give myself a bit of options about how I end up putting the whole thing together. And my next step is just to stitch these squares onto the backing fabric using more of the straight stitch I've already been doing, and some of these sulky threads. And I think, you know, I could go around each square, but I think it's going to make more sense for me to just do one long line, a long line here, all the way across, here, all the way across, here, 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 and then the same along this way. So I'll end up with lots of intersecting lines showing on the back, but that won't matter because it's not going to show. When I've done all of that, it'll be time to do my decorative stitching, add any beads, buttons, whatever I want to add. And then it's time to decide how I'm going to put it all together. When we get to that stage, I'll talk through a few different options for whether you want to make it into a hanging or frame it or turn it into a wrap or whatever you want to do. As I say, I probably will end up turning my backing piece that I haven't got with me into a stitch sampler just for a bit of added interest, because I've been following a couple of let me just keep going to talk to you and you're not there. There you are. I've been following a couple of different YouTube channels that go through stitches really well. One is called Feather Stitch House, and one is Sarah Homfrey Embroidery, I've talked about before, and I want to follow through and try some of their stitches. I was watching Feather Stitch House the other day, a lady on there, she was showing stitches I'd never even heard the name of before, and it's the same as Sarah Homfrey's actually, and they show them really, really well. So I want to try a few of them, so that's what I'm going to do. But you don't have to, just pick a piece of fabric that you like the look of to use as your backing, or if you're going to end up framing it or doing it as a hanging, it doesn't matter. You can just leave it like this, or use a bit of old pillowcase on the back. It really doesn't matter. Very much depends on what you're going to do, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So going just back to the desk for a minute, you can see this is the pile of orts that I've built up. I usually keep in a drawer, in a jar, but my orts jar is already full. These are the tiny bits that I snipped off the edges, and other bits that are kind of too small to do very much with. Some of these I'll probably retrieve. You see, I could do something with those. Don't throw them away, keep them, because I've got another project coming up very soon. I'm going to use up some of these. If you've had Bazaar packs, you'll have probably had odd doodads like this. I've been hoarding these things and I really need to do something with them. There's odd bits and bobs like this that I haven't known what to do with, but I love them. I even had one with an A. So gather up anything like that you've got. I've got odd tassels and things, because I'm going to be starting on the back to face again. I'm going to be starting on the boho slow sew dangles. So I've done the no sew boho bangles, and I'm going to be doing the slow sew boho dangles next. So that's going to be either single kind of long dangling ornaments that you can hang up as single things in your windows, or I've seen people put them in the trees in their garden, which looks absolutely gorgeous, or you can make mobiles out of them. But we'll do that and we'll tie it together. I'm going to do a boho bead. I've done them before, boho beads and tatty tassels before, but I'm going to do them again as a no-sew project over the next couple of weeks, and we'll tie them all together and make some lovely danglers. So so don't throw, for part of the dangler thing we're going to need some stuffing, so we might as well use these little trimmings. So I've kept them all. I've got this lovely back and forth like a fiddler's elbow today. So I've got them in this lovely little bowl. It's from my granny's china set, Floradora. I love this. I'm afraid to use it to eat from, because then you wash it up and there's always a danger that you're going to break it. But yeah, it needs to be used. Anyway, it looks very pretty like that, doesn't it? So that's where I am now. I'm going to stitch all these on, and then when I come to start my decorative stitching, probably in a couple of days, I'll come back and just show you, sort of what I'm up to. So that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope some of you are still stitching along with me. Please keep sharing your pictures in the Discord community, or on the Arty Farty Annie group on Facebook, or just tag me on Instagram. I'll leave links. I'll leave my link tree below, and you can find all the links you need in there. So that's it for now. Thanks very much, and I will see you again really soon.